The morning sun rose gently over Enugu city, pouring warm light across the red rooftops and leafy streets. Birds fluttered past open windows as the city began to hum with life. On a quiet street in Independence Layout stood a modest cream-colored bungalow with a small flower garden in front. The air smelled faintly of hibiscus and fresh paint. Grace Williams' home, a place where peace lived. Inside, Grace hummed softly as she arranged breakfast on the dining table. Boiled yam, fried eggs, and a cup of steaming cocoa. Her movements were calm and graceful, like someone who found joy in simplicity. She wore a clean blue gown, her hair tied back neatly. Her husband, Daniel Williams, came out of their room, adjusting the sleeves of his shirt. He was tall, with kind eyes that held years of quiet endurance. A local architect, Daniel had built their home himself. Not grand, but filled with love. "Good morning, sweetheart," he greeted, bending to kiss her cheek. "Morning, darling," she replied with a smile. "Breakfast is ready. Sit down before it gets cold." Daniel sat, glancing at her with that same admiration he'd carried since the day they met in university. 7 years of marriage had not dimmed his love for her, only deepened it. They had faced challenges: delayed conception, financial strain, and family pressure. But through it all, Grace had remained his anchor. Steady, transparent, and loyal. "You didn't sleep much last night," Grace said, placing his tea beside him. Daniel chuckled softly. "You noticed?" "Of course. I always do." He sighed. "It's that new housing contract. The client keeps changing the design. I just need one big project that will stabilize us, Grace. I'm tired of small ones that barely cover materials." Grace sat beside him, her hand resting on his. "You'll get it soon, Daniel. I believe in you. God's timing may take a while, but it's always perfect." He looked at her, smiling faintly. "You say that so easily." "Because I mean it." Her calm faith was contagious. It often disarmed his worries, reminding him that peace didn't come from wealth but from trust. In God and in each other. As he stood to leave for work, Grace tucked a small envelope into his pocket. "What's this?" "Just a little something from my shop sales this week," she said shyly. "Buy yourself lunch." "Grace," he began to protest. "Please," she smiled. "Let me spoil you sometimes." He laughed, kissed her forehead, and left. She stood by the doorway, waving as his old Toyota Corolla drove off down the quiet street. Later that morning, Grace arrived at her boutique, Grace Mode Fashion, tucked in a small plaza near Polo Park Mall. She'd started it 3 years earlier with Daniel's support. Business wasn't booming, but it was honest work. Around noon, her friends walked in, loud and lively as always. Sophie, Amanda, and Laura. Sophie, tall and stylish, owned a beauty spa nearby. Amanda, petite and witty, sold imported wigs online. Laura, the boldest of them, was a banker known for her expensive taste and sharp tongue. They hugged Grace warmly, their perfume filling the air. "Grace," Sophie exclaimed. "You're always in this shop, I swear. Don't you get tired?" Grace smiled. "Someone has to earn the money I spend." Laura rolled her eyes. "Please, you and your honesty. Tell me you've hidden at least a little money from Daniel." Grace looked up from the counter. "Hide money? Why would I?" Amanda laughed. "Because every smart woman does. You never know when you'll need a backup plan. Men are unpredictable." "Not Daniel," Grace replied softly. "We made a promise when we married. No secrets, no lies." Laura scoffed. "That's cute, but unrealistic. You think Daniel tells you everything?" "Girl, men are experts at hiding things. You better learn to play smart." Grace's tone stayed gentle. "I'd rather be at peace knowing I'm truthful. Lies only build walls between hearts." Sophie shook her head, teasing. "You and that pastor's wife mentality. Grace, sometimes I wonder if you're even living in the same world as us." They laughed, sipping their soft drinks, but Grace only smiled. Deep down, their words hurt a little. Not because she doubted her beliefs, but because it reminded her how lonely honesty could feel in a world that rewarded deceit. As the day went on, their conversations turned more revealing. Sophie was bragging about her spa's success, showing pictures on her phone. "I just bought new equipment worth $5 million, she said proudly. Grace's eyes widened. "Wow, that's huge. Congratulations, Sophie." "Thanks," she said, smirking. "I didn't tell my husband, though. He'd freak out if he knew I took a loan in his name." Grace froze. "In his name? Relax. I'll pay it back before he finds out." Amanda giggled. "You're brave. I couldn't try that." Sophie shrugged. "That's marriage for you. You must be smart." Then Amanda's turn came. "My own husband thinks I'm making £300,000 a month from my wig business. Meanwhile, it's more like £800,000. What he doesn't know can't hurt him." Laura laughed, tapping her long nails on the counter. "I love that energy. I tell mine I'm traveling for training when I'm actually in Abuja enjoying life. Men lie every day. I'm just playing the same game." Grace shook her head slowly. "I don't know how you all do it. Secrets might feel safe, but they always find their way out." Sophie smirked. "That's why you're Grace, the saint of Enugu." Laughter filled the room again. Grace smiled faintly, pretending to laugh with them, but her heart sank. She wasn't angry, just sad. She knew the world saw honesty as weakness, but she couldn't betray her principles. Her parents had taught her that integrity was the only inheritance that never fades. That night, back at home, Grace sat by the window as rain began to drizzle outside. The rhythmic drops on the glass sounded like soft music. Daniel was sitting across the room, working on some building sketches. "You're quiet tonight," he said, not looking up. "Just tired," she replied softly. He smiled without glancing up. "From your busy boutique or your gossiping friends?" She chuckled. "Both." He finally looked at her, his eyes kind. "They tease you a lot, don't they?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "They think I'm too honest, too open." Daniel put down his pencil and leaned forward. "Grace, don't ever change that. You are my peace. I can go through any storm as long as I know my wife's heart is pure." Her eyes filled with tears. "I just want to be a good wife, Daniel. I don't ever want secrets between us." He took her hand gently. "That's why I love you. You're my truth." The rain grew heavier outside, and for a moment, the world was silent. Just the sound of two hearts beating in sync. Weeks passed. Grace's business began to improve slowly. She expanded her product line and even started saving for a second branch. One afternoon, while closing her boutique, she heard voices outside. Sophie and Amanda were arguing bitterly. "You can't be serious," Sophie hissed. "I told you not to take that loan in your husband's name." Amanda snapped. "What if the bank calls him?" "They won't," Sophie said sharply, though her face showed fear. "They promised to keep it confidential." Grace stepped out, concerned. "Is everything okay?" Sophie forced a smile. Yes, just work stress." But Grace could see the worry in her friend's eyes. Amanda pulled Grace aside later and whispered, "She's panicking. The loan officers are calling her husband's number by mistake." Grace sighed. "She should just tell him the truth." Amanda gave a sarcastic laugh. "Easy for you to say, Saint Grace. The rest of us don't live in fairy tales." Grace said nothing more. She just prayed quietly that her friend's choices wouldn't destroy her marriage. Meanwhile, Laura's life was becoming a web of lies. Grace occasionally heard whispers about her weekend business trips. One afternoon, Laura called Grace from a hotel room, giggling. "Guess where I am?" "Where?" "Abuja, with a friend." "A friend?" Grace asked cautiously. "Don't look so shocked, Grace. My husband doesn't appreciate me. Sometimes you just want to feel alive." Grace's heart tightened. "Laura, that's dangerous. Please don't destroy your home." Laura laughed coldly. "Not everyone wants to live like you, Grace. Honesty doesn't pay bills." Grace ended the call feeling heavy. That night she couldn't sleep. She thought about her friends. Beautiful, intelligent women who had everything the world admired, yet lacked peace. She prayed for them, asking God to open their eyes before it was too late. One Saturday morning, Grace was in her boutique when Daniel walked in unexpectedly. He wore a bright smile and held an envelope. "Guess what?" he said. "What?" "I just got shortlisted for a major government contract. They're impressed with my designs. If I get it, our lives will change." Grace's face lit up. She rushed into his arms. "Oh, Daniel, that's amazing. You see, I told you God would open a door." He nodded, holding her close. "And it's because I've had peace. I couldn't focus without you being truthful with me. You've given me strength." Grace smiled, her eyes glistening. "We've built everything on honesty, Daniel. That's why nothing can shake it." As they drove home that evening, passing through the quiet streets of Enugu, Grace saw something that unsettled her. Amanda standing by the roadside, arguing fiercely with a man she didn't recognize. The man looked angry, gesturing with his hands. Grace turned her face away. She didn't want to intrude, but something in her heart whispered that the storm she feared was near. When they got home, Daniel asked, "You're quiet again. What's wrong?" "Just thinking," she replied softly. "Sometimes, I wonder if being honest still matters in this world." He smiled faintly. "It does. You'll see. The world may mock honesty for a while, but truth always wins eventually." She looked out the window as the night fell over the city. The moonlight bathed their house in a soft glow, and deep inside, Grace felt peace. A peace that only those who walk in truth can understand. The afternoon sun hung high over Enugu, spilling soft golden light across the bustling streets. Grace's boutique, Grace Mode Fashion, was alive with customers. Women trying on Ankara gowns, a tailor humming softly as she pressed a fabric, and Grace herself gently folding a stack of neatly sewn blouses. It had been a good week. The word of her kindness had spread. Customers said she never cheated, never overcharged, and always smiled, even when business was slow. Yet, in the same breath, they would whisper, "She's too soft. She'll never be rich like Sophie or Amanda." Grace had heard it all before, but she only smiled. To her, peace of mind was worth more than gold. That Saturday, Sophie, Amanda, and Laura arrived at her shop in their usual fashion. Late, loud, and dazzling. Their heels clicked against the tiled floor as they strutted in, perfume trailing behind them. "Grace, my dear," Sophie exclaimed, stretching out her manicured arms for a hug. "Still selling clothes the slow way, I see?" Grace chuckled softly. "At least I'm still selling." Amanda rolled her eyes playfully. "Girl, with your beauty, you should have made Daniel buy you a bigger shop by now. My husband just got me a new car last week." Grace smiled. "That's wonderful, Amanda. You deserve it." Laura leaned against the counter, examining her nails. "You're too modest, Grace. You're always talking about honesty and loyalty, but do you think those things pay rent? Men respect women who play the game." Grace paused. "And what game is that?" Laura's lips curled. "You know, keep a few secrets, make him chase you, pretend you don't know what he's doing. Men love mystery." Sophie laughed. "Exactly. Honesty doesn't win hearts. Strategy does." Grace laughed softly, shaking her head. "My marriage isn't a game. Daniel and I built it on truth. He knows everything about me, and I know everything about him." The three women exchanged looks, a mix of amusement and disbelief. Amanda whispered under her breath, "And that's why you're still driving that old car." Grace heard her, but she said nothing. She had long learned that peace wasn't found in arguing with those who didn't share your values. Still, her heart stung a little. Later that day, the friends went out for lunch at the Haven, a new restaurant near Independence Layout. They sat at a corner table overlooking the street, glasses of Chapman and plates of jollof rice before them. Sophie leaned in, lowering her voice. "Girls, I have to tell you something. My husband thinks I'm in Abuja this weekend." Amanda gasped. "Sophie," she smirked. "Relax. I told him I went for a fashion exhibition. Meanwhile, I'm here finalizing a deal with my business partner." She made air quotes with her fingers. "He sends me money every month." Laura grinned wickedly. You mean your boyfriend, not business partner. Sophie giggled. You know how it is. Grace froze, fork midway to her mouth. Sophie, you're married. How can you? Sophie rolled her eyes. Oh, Grace. Not you again with your honesty is everything speech. Please, my husband is never faithful. Why should I be the saint? Amanda nodded. Men cheat all the time, Grace. If you stay too loyal, you'll end up poor and heartbroken. Grace sighed. But two wrongs don't make a right. I couldn't look at Daniel and lie to his face. Laura waved her hand dismissively. You're living in a fairy tale. One day, you'll see that being honest won't save you. Grace looked at her friends, the laughter, the pride, the subtle bitterness beneath their glamour. For the first time, she felt sorry for them. Their words were sharp because their hearts were wounded. Still, she said nothing more. She paid her bill quietly, smiled at them, and left early. Weeks passed. Business continued to flourish. Grace began receiving steady customers who said they admired her integrity. One woman even told her, "My husband sent me here because he says your shop is the only one that doesn't overprice." Grace smiled, heart swelling with gratitude. Meanwhile, the storms started brewing in her friends' lives. One afternoon, Sophie stormed into the boutique, her eyes red from crying. "Grace, can you believe it? My husband found out about the money in my secret account. Someone leaked my messages," she cried, clutching her designer bag. Grace rushed to her side, helping her sit down. "Oh no, what happened?" "He's threatening to divorce me. He said I'm deceitful, that I embarrassed him." Sophie sobbed. Grace sighed softly. "I'm sorry, Sophie. Maybe it's time to be honest with him. Tell him everything." Sophie glared. "You think honesty fixes everything? If I tell him the truth, he'll hate me forever." Grace touched her arm. "But lies already did that." Sophie looked away, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand, Grace. You're too good." Before Grace could reply, Amanda and Laura arrived. They looked tense, whispering rapidly. Laura hissed, "Sophie, you won't believe it. Amanda's husband checked her phone and found her messages with that guy from Lagos." Amanda's face flushed red. "It was nothing serious. Just chatting." Grace stared at them, heart heavy. The same women who once laughed at her honesty now sat before her, trembling with guilt and fear. That evening, Grace sat alone at home, watching the rain fall softly outside. Daniel was still at work. She thought about her friends, their laughter, their pride, their sudden downfall. She whispered a prayer. "God, keep me strong. Let me never be tempted by what looks shiny. Let me always choose truth." Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Daniel's car pulling in. The door opened, and he stepped in, tired but smiling. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, removing his shoes. "How was your day?" Grace smiled softly. "Busy, but good." The girls came by again. Daniel laughed. "Those women again? Always gossiping." Grace chuckled. "They mean well sometimes." He sat beside her on the couch. "I don't know how you do it. You're surrounded by people who chase shortcuts, but you stay steady. That's what I love about you." Her eyes softened. "Sometimes it's lonely, Daniel. They make me feel small." He took her hand. "Grace, don't let anyone make you doubt your worth. A clear conscience is better than gold." She leaned into his shoulder, the rhythm of the rain blending with the quiet beat of his heart. For a moment, everything felt right. Simple, peaceful, perfect. The peace didn't last long. A week later, Enugu buzzed with gossip. Amanda's husband had thrown her out after discovering her fake business deals. Laura's husband, too, had learned she'd been secretly taking money from his account. The three women's lives unraveled quickly. WhatsApp groups lit up with screenshots, voice notes, and messages. The once glamorous wives became subjects of ridicule and whispers. Grace sat quietly in her shop, listening to the murmurs from customers who shared the news. "Did you hear about Laura? Her husband changed the locks." Sophie's husband reported her to his family elders. "Ah, Amanda too? Aya." Grace's heart ached. Not with pride, but with sorrow. These were her friends, women she had laughed with, shared dreams with. She couldn't celebrate their downfall. Instead, she whispered a prayer for mercy. One morning, Daniel drove Grace to work. As they approached the boutique, a few women from the community were waiting outside, smiling. "Madam Grace," one of them called, "we just wanted to thank you. You've been such an example to us. We all see how you treat your husband, how honest you are. You make marriage look beautiful again." Grace's cheeks flushed with surprise. "Oh, thank you. I'm just doing what I believe is right." Daniel smiled proudly. "That's my wife." Grace looked up at him, eyes shining. For the first time, she realized that the peace she guarded so fiercely was beginning to speak for her. Louder than her friends' laughter, louder than gossip, louder than pride. That night, Daniel returned home with a small box wrapped in gold paper. "What's this?" Grace asked. He grinned. "Just something for the woman who reminds me that truth still lives in this world." Inside the box was a simple silver necklace with her name engraved. Grace. Tears welled up in her eyes. "It's beautiful," he smiled. "So are you."